Monday, November 13th, 2017, regular session of the Anamosa City Council, City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Rich.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
John.
Here.
Ron.
Here.
Cody.
Here.
Betty. Here.
2.0 motion to approve the minutes from the following meeting, October 23rd, 2017, regular council meeting.
So moved. Second.
First by Rich, second by Cody. Any discussion, any changes? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 And Rod wanted to say a few words for
Well,
us.
I would like to request that I prefer we take a different approach with some of the agenda items, or all the agenda items, actually. I would like us to have the discussion up front. That discussion then could definitely drive the motions. Lately, we've been making a motion, having the discussion, and then recanting the motion again, or recreating anew. So, from what I've been looked into, there is no legal that says you cannot have the discussion in a public meeting like this prior to the motion.
Would you say that again, please, Rob?
From what I've looked into, there's nothing that holds us to having the motion in second and then generating the discussion on the topic. That we could discuss the topic prior to a motion being made.
You can.
All right.
Do we need to do something formal to change how we do things?
Well, you've got this format, and I think at least you need a motion if you're going to deviate from the standard format.
But it's got discussion first and possible action, so I don't, isn't that kind of a,
What are you saying?
the way it's listed, they always say discussion and possible action. So doesn't that lead the path to hold discussion first, potentially,
I think we
without
make,
changing it?
we make a motion, then we second it, then we discuss it. Is
That's
that
how
what
we've
you're
always done
saying?
it.
Well, I would prefer to discuss it, because that discussion drives the motion.
So discuss it, then make the motion and second it? Can we change that?
There's nothing changing.
There's,
Can you do it? Yes.
and we just do it then, we don't have to make it formal like it's always done. Okay? I mean, is that okay with everybody else?
Well, since you've had this format,
We're not changing the format, though, I don't think, Adrian. We're just
you're
generating
having
discussion.
You can do that.
All right. 3.0 public hearing. 3.1 public hearing on nuisance notice served on property located at 106 East Main Street as requested by Blue Max Corporation, represented by Doug and Casey Wortman.
You bet. Can I talk, or?
Yeah.
All right. Trying to do, actually, it's two different buildings. It's 106 and 108 Main.
Name and address, please.
Doug Wortman, 18346, 120th Street. Okay.
All right.
You brought up discussion first. Is there any particular questions that you want to talk to? Or I've got a little PowerPoint I just go through, just trying to bring everybody up to speed on where we are since this fire took place on, what, February 18th? Want me to jump into that, or does somebody have any questions you want me to try to answer first?
I would say PowerPoint's fine.
Okay.
PowerPoint first.
Yeah, since this is a presentation or hearing.
Is your screen up, Doug?
See if we can get it up. There you go. All right. I need this on or not?
You're live.
Hmm?
You're live.
I'm loud. too loud, quiet me down.
No, I said live.
Oh, live? All right. Again, two buildings, the one on the left with the awning and the one on the right with the awning, 106 and 108. We had a fire on February 18th. Started in the apartment, James's apartment, which is the apartment that's on the right. And thank the Lord that between the first responders and them getting out in time, that neither one of those two folks were hurt horribly. They both ended up in Iowa City, however, with some smoke inhalation damage. The fire department in Anamosa, as well as Monticello and Martell, and then called in Marion, they were able to keep that fire from spreading for the most part to the rest of the buildings. We did have a little bit of damage to fire damage to grounds or to Animals Floral, and then we had damage to Tom and Kim's building, some fire damage, and a ton of water and a ton of smoke damage, not only to those buildings but to Betty's building as well. And it's been a long process. I covered that already. We still don't have a final report from the insurance company on what caused the fire. They've ruled out arson, of course. They ruled out electrical. And then they took all of the appliances in James's apartment and sent them to Chicago. And we're still waiting on a report. When did they tell us we'd get it? Yeah, well, we still don't have it yet. Not that it matters, it doesn't fix anything, but mention that, and then thanking the fire department, of course, because it could have been horrible, like in Macokota or anywhere else. So that's James's apartment. Of course, the roof's totally gone, and that's what it looked like a couple weeks afterwards when they finally let us in the building, or maybe it was a month later. 2 months? 2 months later. Well, that's what it looks like now. Now is a couple weeks ago. Getting there. It's not done yet. But it was a lot of burnt crap to tear out of there. This was Julie's apartment, which obviously that's not initially where the fire started, but it spread to her apartment. And what I've got circled there in blue is where the floor collapsed, just like it did in James' apartment. Of course, ceiling fell in, and then once the ceiling fell in, it fell through that floor and then all down below. And that's what it looks like now. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. That's what the gallery looked like, and this is after we hauled out probably 4 or 5 roll-off units and finally decided, hey, we should take some pictures down here. And that's after we got most of the appliances and furniture and whatnot that from the upstairs fell down through that floor. And that's not a very good picture, I apologize, and I just have been traveling and gone too much here lately to try and get some good pictures. But that's from a few weeks ago where you can tell up on top the floor finally is in. We've got some center walls in there for support. So that's moving along. This is the other side of the gallery. Like there were 2 buildings. One side was the gallery side that my wife had. The other side she had vendors in. This is the vendor side. And that's basically all the debris you see is what fell down from the upstairs apartment because the roof collapsed and fell through the 2nd floor and the 2nd floor and the 1st floor. And that's what it looks like now. All the debris out of there, of course, and the walls are getting built. We've still got up on top, you can see there's lath and whatnot that still needs tore out, but all the burnt stuff up on top is all out. And the gallery on the west side of the open, where the doors were to the front, there still needs to be some stuff tore out of there. We got glass on order, we got doors on order, but we can't obviously tear any of that stuff out of there until that stuff comes in, about the middle of December. Again, the roof was totally shot, so I'd tear all the roof all off, and that's just a shot that contractor took while it was being constructed, if you will. And there's the roof now. It's got a rubber roof on it. It is about 90% done, you'll see up on top. It is not completely done. We've still got the common wall that we've got to address, and there's a few other flashing points that need dealt with. So just a few bullet points here, if you will, that Casey and I clearly understand the building's an eyesore. And it was a horrible fire. Every contractor that we brought in, including some folks from Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Dubuque, North Liberty, they all said tear it down. Nobody put a roof on it. Said the building needs to come down. And we got quotes to tear it down. And that would have been the smartest thing to do economically. Just tear it down. But, especially my wife, doesn't want to do that, nor do I want to see a piece of history torn down. So we've been working on it. We've had volunteers, we've had friends, we've had family. After we had all the, we had the report that was submitted to the city that said it was sound to go in, start working on it, start cleaning out so we can rebuild it. So debris removal, you know, we got most of it out, tore out nights and weekends when we could. And started in April getting most of the crap out of there. 22 roll-offs so far, and then we finally got a contractor, so here by basically the 1st of October, we got, again, 90% of the roof done. It's not completely done yet. We got a storefront on order. It's essentially the same as what's on Heather Warren's building, same company, Glass Concepts. The windows are all on order to match Tom McKim's building. We really like the black windows they've got. And then doors are on order as of Sunday. We went and got those on order. And we've had volunteers in there working on the basement. We still got crap to haul out of the basement yet. Permanent electrical is going. We had temporary electrical. Now we're getting permanent installed. Delancey's doing that. And I'm hoping, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna get the money from, but I'm hoping that we can start getting some ductwork running soon, so eventually we can get some heat in there and make sure that thing stays dried out. But at least now, with a roof on it, we're not dealing with all the water coming in, constantly soaking everything, not only into our building, but leaching into the others. Gotta get new furnaces, we'll get water, and then eventually we'll get it done. With regard to the nuisance issue, yeah, we are clearly understand it's less than perfect. We got a long ways to go after that devastating fire. And we hope the city understands that we are not, you know, slacking off, if you will. We'll continue to make improvements on it, almost daily that we can get in there. And we believe we got about 90% of the debris and burnt stuff removed. We've still got a little bit of carpeting in there we got to get out that I've got some equipment on top of, and the piano we got to get moved. But I think we've made a huge difference. Just in the last few weeks alone, I've got a 50-inch or 60-inch, 5-foot industrial fan in there. Right now it's in the basement. Right now it can't run because we're waiting for electricity to get hooked back up tomorrow. But we'll get that in there and get that dried out. We are not walking away from this building if anybody's got that kind of concern. I know that's happened in other towns and other cities. We're not walking away from it. We'll just keep working on it. Just ask for your patience. Questions?
You've had the roof on quite a while, haven't you?
Again, it's not completely on, but as of about the 1st of October.
Yeah.
About a month and a couple weeks.
You said you got about 90% of the debris gone?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the plan for the last 10%?
Well, the last 10%, we've got, yeah, so I've obviously got a plan. Whenever I can get broke loose, we go in there and work on it. I'd been there tonight if I wasn't in here. Other questions?
What do you have to finish up on the roof to get that all finished, sealed up between?
Well, the common wall with Tom and Kim, unfortunately, I don't know who decided to do this, but years ago, somebody on that parapet wall decided where the chimneys were, just take a sledgehammer and bust them all over. And then they went over the top of it with metal, just to cover it up. So when the fire took place, of course, we removed that metal. Now here's all this ugly, broken up brick and old chimneys. That all has to get concrete poured over the top of it, cap it. And Tom's got a really good idea. We just got to figure out how we're going to do it. And once that gets done, then we can fasten the rubber roof to the sides of it.
So have you guys been able to communicate and work on this together, you and the Durgans?
Well, probably not as much as we should. Other questions?
It's a pretty extensive remodel. Do you or your insurance company have any timelines as to?
Well, the insurance company, I just had cash value on it, so they just paid me what I paid for it, and that was it. They paid that right away. So the timeline's all on us. Now it's just, you know, it's out of our money, out of our pocket now. It's, you know, we can get in there and do it. My labor's free.
And I guess I feel for the extent of the damage, obviously. Compared to other communities, 8 months, I don't think is all that unreasonable. I know we had tons of contractors in our building day and night. and it still took almost 6 months. So, and your building's twice the size of ours.
Well, the challenge was is we couldn't get into it for starters. We couldn't even walk into it for the first 2 months, and then after that, we thought we'd find a contractor that would be able to do the roof right away, and it took forever to find one. In fact, a friend of ours found one. So yeah, we're behind the 8 ball on that.
So the complaint, was it just the smell? Kim, was it the smell?
Am I gonna be talking?
Well, I have a question, because when you said, I don't feel when I walk by, it looks any more like a nuisance property than other buildings we have.
Oh, it's the smell and the
So
mildew
that's
smell,
what I'm
the
trying
burnt
to
smell, mildew
pinpoint.
smell.
The complaint was smell,
Mhm.
not so much what it looks like. Is that correct? Did I understand that?
That's the way I read it.
Okay.
So, getting back to the remaining 10%, if there is ash, burnt stuff in there, and you said stuff in the basement, do you have a time frame for getting that out? Like next 30 days, 60 days? What are
Good
we
question.
talking about for a
Yeah.
timeline for some of this stuff?
Yeah, the hope is that all the windows and doors will be there, and then when we close that up, then it's gonna get even tighter yet, right? For as far as being able to run a fan and exhaust some of those smells out. So the windows and doors will all be in, ready to start installing right before Christmas. And then after that, I'd like to try and see if we can get those 2 furnaces turned on in the basement. So I'd like to get all that debris out of there by, let's call it the middle of January, because I'd like to turn on the heat by then.
Because some of that debris is still part of the building yet, if I.
No, all the structural debris is tore out.
Okay, you showed
got
that
some
one
lath.
picture was, yeah, okay.
I got some lath, some burnt lath to tear out. I got a little bit of wood trim in what used to be the classroom to tear out. But the structural stuff has all been removed.
Okay.
I-beams replaced, brick put in. Yeah, the structural stuff's been replaced.
Okay.
Other questions? Or Kim, did you want to talk?
Have either one of you buildings, because I notice there's smoke smell in both buildings, but have the process of mitigation, because when we had our building done, they came in and guaranteed us 100% guarantee you will not smell smoke in your building. Once they opened it up and they mitigated, because pressure washing alone won't take the smell out of that wood. Once that was done and it was closed back up, I cannot smell smoke at all in my building unless the neighboring building has the door open to the upstairs apartment. That's the only time I smell smoke in our building. So the actual, if the center wall was sealed between the 2 buildings, either one could mitigate and not smell the other. Is that correct? Has anybody investigated that?
So there's a capsulating system you can put on, right? Service Master through Dan Kelchin has it, Service Pro has it. But first you gotta get the wall built. We gotta get that center wall built, and I've been waiting for it to dry out enough that we can tear it out. It's got sheetrock on there, it's gotta get tore out, we got some of it already tore out, we gotta tear out more of it. It's gotta be replaced with 5/8 drywall, and then of course, firewall protection on all the seams put in. I was hoping Mike English do that for me, but evidently he's got wrist surgery going on, so I gotta find somebody else. I'll hang drywall, but I'm not very good at mudding and taping.
So it's the common wall that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think I really gotta get heat in there before I can do that, so before I can really get that common wall in there and get it at least taped and legal, it's gonna be probably closer to January, end of January. Yeah, if I'd had a 4-month head start on this, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but.
So that's just a little over 60 days, 75 days, more or less.
From the pictures, it looks like you've done a lot. And I guess I feel like had you boarded it up and walked away, I would be more anxious about it getting done quicker rather than later. I mean, time is always of the essence. but when you talk to other communities who have had this kind of tragedy in their downtown, some take 2 to 5 years. So personally, I guess 8 months when you couldn't even get into it for the first 2.5 months is not, I don't know. As long as work's been done on it, I don't see a problem.
Other thoughts, questions?
Done quite a bit of work to it already.
Come help if you want.
Kim, was there anything you wanted to add to this?
No.
Any other comments?
I didn't,
Make a motion to close the public hearing if there's no other comments.
Second.
all those in favor to close the public hearing, signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Alright. 3.2, public hearing on proposal to enter into a water revenue loan and distribution agreement. And I'll open the public hearing.
Any comments, Tammy?
No written or verbal comments received.
Move to close. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 4.0, presentations, none. 5.0, proclamations, none. Community action items. 6.0, community betterment. 6.1, discussion possible action on nuisance notice served on Blue Max Corporation at 106 East Main Street.
Dale, could you please speak up a little bit and enunciate what you're saying? I can't hear you, I can't understand. Thank you.
6.1, discussion and possible action on nuisance notice served on Blue Max Corporation at 106 East Main Street.
When did you say you'd have windows in? Doors, windows?
Yeah, there's lower windows and there's upper windows. The windows for the apartments in the lower section in the front are all due in about the middle of December. And we gotta get them installed. And then the windows in the back will actually do about a week before that, up on top. Second story up on top.
At least it's closed up. Our building off to the east of us is windows wide open and have for a couple months.
When do you think you'd have the 10% of the garbage out of there?
By the time the heat comes on, so first part of January.
I'm not opposed to going to the end of January before we revisit this issue again, which would be the 75 days I said earlier.
There could be quite a bit of progress between now and the end of January, May.
I agree. I think that's reasonable from our perspective.
And Doug, you think 75 days, that would work for you?
Yeah.
Travis, with the issuing of the nuisance for abatement, you good with just, in a sense, standing down till the end of January and then we revisit this?
Sure, upon, inspection of both properties, and I know I spoke with the Durgans, I've not had a chance to speak with the Wortmans since I inspected both properties. Both are in very different stages of construction. Both are not finished, so it's hard for me to, actually, I can't pinpoint where the smell is coming from. So whether one gets ahead of the other, or the other one gets ahead of the, until it's complete and all tasks are done, it's hard to say where the smell is coming from. I went to Grounds and Goodies and the floral shop, both sustained some sort of damage. I did not smell any odor coming from, or in either building. Both those buildings are fully completed. So until both buildings are done, it's hard saying what it's gonna take, I guess. I think it's just, something that they need, everybody just needs to work on and stay on top of it, and keep addressing it as it goes on.
Kim, with your, the process that you have started and your schedules that you're looking to obtain, how will that be impacted if we kind of sit and wait until the end of January on all the schedules within your building?
So as you know, we've torn out basically everything. The only thing that remains is the wall between 106 East Main and us. The only reason we haven't torn that out, we've got a buffer in there for insulation that has smoke damage and water damage. We've got mold on the wall that faces 106 East Main. It's not on our property. We tore all of the fire rock out of ours. If we were to put that insulation in, it would absorb all the smoke, mold from the neighboring property. So we can't continue until the repairs are done. We'll of course continue with the facade. That's I think where it's the most impactful to the city. Yet understanding what direction we're taking tonight, that will make a decision on what direction we take in the investment in the property.
So it potentially puts you back 75 days as well.
Correct.
I'm not a structural person, I'm not sure how that main wall is, but is there any way you can take all of it out on your side, reframe it, seal it, and close it up without it, and then he come in and do the other, his wall?
As I stated, there's two walls that butt up to each other.
Do you own one and they own the other?
Correct. We've torn all the fire rock off of our wall. We took all the insulation off of our wall and dried it out. We put it back up as a buffer for the smoke smell. Also the mildew, because that fire rock is still on their side. It's still wet. It's still got mildew. So until we have that removed, if I put something against that, it's gonna absorb the smoke and the mildew both. So we can't do anything with that wall until that wall is complete.
I would agree with Kim.
And so Doug, then where would that lie within your schedule as to what you can work on immediate or not? How long before you can address the concern that they have on their side?
Yeah, I think it's pretty dried out now that, I just need to give it Tom. Tom was talking about wanting to put some block in there in part of that area, figure out where he wants to put that block, cause we can't do anything with the sheetrock until he gets that block put in there.
So the common wall appears to be the holdup.
Sounds
Well,
like
the
it.
common wall is where, right now, the majority of opportunity to penetrate from one building to the other, smell, you name it, sound, exists. Upstairs, there's no penetration hole, so it's downstairs. Downstairs, there's a couple spots. One where some brick was fractured a number of years ago. Two is where some structural header was and no longer is. And then where we tore off all our sheetrock, Kim's right, there's just the old insulation up there that ultimately needs to get replaced, new insulation.
And even taking the old insulation out and then putting it back up, there's probably smoke smell in that even.
Well,
I mean,
you gotta remember, this building was still getting rained
Right.
into 45 days ago.
But I mean, some of the smell could still be coming from that insulation that was taken down and put back up, cause that's not gonna come out of it.
The only thing that remains with any kind of smoke or fire damage is that insulation that has been dried. All of the other materials, flooring, lath, plaster, fire rock, ceilings, plural, all of that has been removed. only thing that could, on a wet day, have a smoke smell would be that insulation in the common wall.
So the closing up of the 10% remaining on the roof becomes more critical? Is there any elements that can penetrate through?
It's watertight now, but
It's
you have to look
watertight.
at it, it looks horrible, because there's rubber up there that's just temporarily held in place until we can get that cap put on.
It's the debris that remains, no matter what percentage there is. And it's also that the remaining structure that needs to stay, needs to be treated with some kind of treatment for that smoke smell to be sealed into that structure.
So how soon can you get the remaining debris out? What are you looking at?
75 days.
75 days to get the remaining debris out?
Correct. Yeah, I gotta wait till the windows all come in and we start installing the windows, because I need some of that debris there to hold the structure of the framing material in place. Then I can tear it out, otherwise I can't, otherwise I'd have my windows open for birds to fly in or whatever else. Right now I've got them boarded up. Front and back.
And the unfortunate part in all of this is that, like we discovered in Todd and Betty's building, that it may require total encapsulation with the material that they spray on that wood to encapsulate the smell, even if the common wall is 100% tight. And that may be on both sides,
Oh,
that,
we're gonna
that the
need that.
encapsulation
We're gonna
has to
need that.
take place, so we don't know that until we get that common wall sealed up and tight.
And these companies will guarantee 100%, it's crazy, I don't.
And from Doug's perspective, you can only do one thing at a time to get to your point. And that's the reason I picked the end of January, to kind of have some compromise room both for Kim and for Doug, so. And I understand Kim and Tom's perspective.
Yeah, I can see where they
Wanting
would,
to move forward, at least to figure out whether they have to spend the extra money to do that encapsulation.
where they
get
would
this-
prefer it to be more expeditiously, but then in the same sense, you know, you have to allow the workmen's, the time that they have available to them to get this moving on forward, and you've made huge steps in recent months.
Yeah, I might not be so, most of us probably wouldn't be this willing to talk about it if the sun was still shining in on the burnt material.
I appreciate the fact that the two parties communicate and can work together to get to the common goal at the end of this.
That's key, we're all neighbors.
So if it needs to, if we're looking for a motion for what the city can do as far as the nuisance, I would like to put it on hold till our first meeting in February, which allows all of January to pass, and then we review the progress that's been made at that point.
So not to have it done by then, but just to
Well,
review it.
You know, at the end of if we give them till the end of January, it's the last day of the month.
I'll second that.
I don't know if we need a special meeting before our typical council meeting to,
Well, we have to trust that they're gonna get it done. I mean, at some point, Doug and Casey are not new to Anamosa. They've been here, she's had this art building's been her lifelong dream. They're not walking away. We at some point have to say, if they tell us they need till the end of January, we give it to them and trust and believe that come February 1st, everything will be done probably on both buildings. I mean, it's just, we have to go with that.
I just want to be sure that at the end of January, we're going to review what progress they've made.
yes, our first meeting in,
We're not stating that they must mitigate all the 10% by January.
if we do it that way, that gives Travis time to get in, do his report, and get it back to us by that meeting. So, giving them until the end of January, I'm in favor of.
I would expect they will work diligently to get this done, but like Betty said, this is their livelihood as well, so I don't anticipate them pushing back or dragging their feet. They're-
Well, and honestly, compared to what happened at Macokota and how long it took them to recover, it's amazing where everybody's at this stage of the game. So, I'm okay giving them that January 31st date, because they've made great progress, and I think they're gonna continue making good progress.
It was hard for me to see the picture, it's heart-wrenching. I think for the first 4.5 months, I cried every day after that fire. It's not, I don't think the Workmans have taken any of this lightly.
So I've got a motion by Rod, second by Bill, to give them till the end of January. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 6.2, discussion and possible action on resolution directing advertisement to solicit bids for sale of old hospital site.
To fill in those dates, the blanks on that, Adrian, if it's, do you think it's enough time? December 11th for the council to consider the bids, that's a month, and have them in here by December 6th, the Wednesday before.
I would think.
Is that a fair time?
It gives, those interested about 3 weeks to submit bid.
And I'll contact the ones that we know of.
I'll have to say, I'd still like to see a bond required on this project, so we have serious people who will see it through to the end in order to get their bond back.
Will they be allowed to go in and take a look at it before they bid? I mean, somebody asked me, they wanted to see what it was like inside.
Yes, Greg has keys to that, I'm sure, they've done it before.
I've taken several people through there.
Okay.
I got the keys.
Somebody asked me today, and they said it was on the agenda, and they wanted to know if they could look before they, so I will let them know tomorrow.
They just contact City Hall, right, Tammy, you're saying?
Yeah,
You're
just get hold of
scheduling all
City
the
Hall, they'll
showings.
contact
I
me.
can be Greg's secretary. And the notice will go in the paper would be a week from, the earliest I can do it would be a week from Thursday, so you just have to be before in 20.
Adrian, rely on you for your expertise here. In regard to a performance bond, I guess the way I think of it, it would be more practical to have that as you go to accept the bid,
Yeah.
and then you would expect a performance bond at that point.
At this point, you would be looking at a bid bond. And then if the bid were accepted, if it were your typical construction, then you would be looking at a
Performance bond, which if the party that we award it to walks away from it, then some entity steps in and pays up.
Finishes the project.
So is that what you're thinking, Cody?
Yeah, I don't
I mean,
I don't want the taxpayers stuck with a building again that we're gonna have to pay to tear down.
can we have a performance bond without a bid bond? Just let bids come
Sure.
in and then add a performance bond in the negotiating of the contract?
Should a bidder know that going in, that they will have to have a performance bond?
Well, I think you're gonna save some grief on people's part if they don't know that that's a consideration, and then they come, they may, if a performance bond were required, they may have had no interest in it, and it probably just saves their time and your time.
Well,
I think
to
it
me,
should
if they
be
have no
upfront.
interest in it, they have no interest in finishing the project.
Well, it adds to the cost though.
True.
Explain to us how it adds to the cost so that the public
Well, your successful bidder, who is required to post the performance bond, has to pay the insurance company a premium. And I don't know what that would be, because I don't know, you know, it depends if somebody's looking at a $200,000 project, $100,000, it's going to depend upon the scale of the project they propose to undertake.
And investors will consider that in the price they pay the city for the property. And the negotiating out the,
Well,
they would take that into consideration, what that expense will be for them, and what they're willing to pay.
I would think so, yes.
I guarantee they would.
But I guess to Cody's point, it would be better if you are considering a performance bond.
State now.
In the advertisement, tell them the successful bidder will be required to post a performance bond for the cost of their proposed development.
So we'd have to add that to what you've prepared.
It would be easy to add.
Just when you make the motion, just add that item to it.
I make a motion, we solicit for bids for the sale of the old hospital site and have our city attorney add the requirement for performance bond upon successful bids for the building.
I'll second
For
that.
I should say, not for the building, for the site.
First by Bill, second by Betty, and it's a roll vote.
Adrian, what details would need to be outlined within a performance bond?
Well, that will depend on what sort of development they're proposing.
And we're gonna want that the project
Well, they're gonna
completed.
they're gonna submit what the tax base is gonna be, which will determine what their project will be, which will decide how much a performance bond will be.
How much money they're gonna put into the building.
Right.
'Cause if they're gonna
So
put-
working backwards, when they submit their proposal on what the property tax will be,
That's what Betty was saying last time, we just got to a different point to it.
Other than the completion of the project, is there any other details that the performance bond needs to call out?
Not that I'm aware.
I mean, as far as if subcontractors are paid, we don't need to concern ourselves with that.
No.
Although it could drive whether the project gets completed or not. We're just worried about the completion of the project within the performance bond.
Correct.
'Cause that's why I keep saying that the devil can be within the details then. And it could also, the more detail we have, the more it deters would-be investors in projects.
Well, I agree, the more strings you attach, there's more cost associated with it.
Is there any way of, instead of saying a completed project, say, depending on what their plans are, first, the performance bond is just for getting the property cleaned up and acceptable as far as their completion of anything internal, let's say they're turning it into senior housing or something. That is a second stage of the project, and having a first stage of just getting the property cleaned up from that aspect, doing it in stages.
The performance bonds that I've had experience with, it's the completed project.
Be my guess.
You know, they want a turnkey at the end, and then the city signs off, accepts in the case of construction, accepts the construction is substantially completed.
Because I could see this being in a two-stage project of first getting in there, getting everything
Yeah.
cleaned up and so forth, then turning around and going to the next stage.
But I think the
But-
performance bond at the end, as Adrian said, gets to the point that Cody's been driving toward.
And you could waive it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you reach a point, or the contractor, the developer reaches a point that you're satisfied that they're not gonna tuck and run, you know, and you could always waive it at that time. Or release it, I guess would be the term.
I'm sorry, Bill, was your motion for the bond to be part of the completed project?
We can make it that way.
His motion was to add the performance bond in as part of the award process, that they have that in place to award the project. Or the bid.
And Tammy could amend it to show that that would be for the completed project.
Well, that's what the performance bonds are, is for completed in general.
And I
Pretty
was just
standard.
gonna propose that, the advertisement have a provision that, stating the successful bidder will be required to post a performance bond for their proposed development.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ready to vote? It's a roll vote.
Rich,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
6.3, discussion and possible action on proposed purchase agreement for the property located at 101.5 East Main Street.
So Adrian, one of the concerns I had at the last council meeting was that the would-be purchaser actually follows through on this. I don't want to accept this property and then for whatever reason, they're no longer interested. So that was one of the drawbacks I had. So from what I'm reading, it now looks like that's all been taken care of. We have,
Well, it's a contract. And the reason for the letter of understanding, first of all, the interested party, I wanted to make sure that we were talking oranges and oranges. And that was the reason. Then I was looking for the council. If they say, yeah, I like that letter of understanding, then I would take the next step, which I have now, in putting together the purchase agreement. It's like any other contract, though. You know, if it's,
it's only good just so, yeah.
yeah,
There's nothing more that we could do to,
well, you could do a performance bond. You could have her, give her projection, or her development projection, and require her to post a performance bond. But, again, that's adding cost.
Okay.
And I don't know what her budget is. I do recall her telling me that she had a bid for the roof, and she was prepared to act on that. And I thought it was pretty pricey, but I'm surprised it wasn't more.
Anytime they have to put more money into paper and less into renovating,
And I don't think she is going to walk away from this personally.
well,
She put a lot of money in that building on the next street down.
and again, we have somebody who's been here forever, is invested, is,
This one I would just as soon not do a performance bond on. It might be the last nail in the coffin that she just says, no, we'll walk away from it, and then we're.
how long has she been
stuck.
coming back to this? A long time. Or
Six-
she's
I
paying
wasn't
it
involved in the
back?
conversation, it's her conversations with, Alan were
I'm guessing 8 or
Over
9
quite-
months.
quite a few months. Cause she's, took a tour of it and checked it out before she even
Did her
got
homework.
back to Al.
Well, let me ask you this. If we're taking possession of this property to turn around and sell it, do we have to have a public hearing to proceed,
it?
to sell it and proceed with
Yes, we do.
this contract?
Yes, we do.
So we can have a contract before we have a public hearing to allow any other potential buyers.
Well, we gotta, one foot's gotta lead. You know, we have the ability with that abandoned building statute to acquire title. Nobody else has that. It's unique to the municipality. And she's coming basically and saying, you exercise your ability to get the property bought, I'll buy it. I'll give you your money back that you put in the brick facade, and I'll pay any out-of-pocket expenses.
Well, and I thought you wanted not to, I thought you were one that didn't want the city to take it unless we had a buyer.
I'd rather the city was never in the real estate business.
Correct. But, and I am 110% in agreement to that. However, if we have abandoned property, we really don't have a choice.
There's no white knight's gonna
Yeah.
take
It's
it
not
over.
going to just,
Our white knight's the one that's willing to pay us to fix it.
I don't want to see the city in a tight spot because we didn't follow the correct avenues in acquiring it or disposing of it.
Well, we're in no tight, we're doing the same as the old hospital, but we've got a buyer that we didn't have in the old hospital. I understood the motivation with the old hospital is if we don't stick our finger in the dike, we got a real problem, and we can take advantage of that abandoned building statute. Who else? Nobody was gonna touch that property at tax sale.
Right.
And that's probably even more true with the property we're talking about here, because it's, I mean,
There's
taxes.
expenses that are gonna be waived.
Well, that's
private entity.
contingent. She says, I'll pay the money you put in the brick facade.
Yes.
I'll pay your out-of-pocket expenses, but I'm not paying any back taxes. And so the purchase agreement is contingent upon, one, we getting title, because we got to serve notice, somebody, not likely, but we've got a process to follow. And it's also contingent upon us getting those taxes abated, which I don't think is any issue once the city acquires title as an abandoned building.
I don't see any, I mean, at some point, we've gotta start addressing some of this stuff. And I think that we've spent a long time trying to locate these people.
So I guess the only other issue I have with it is, we're going to basically carry the contract on this for her paying back, what we've invested in the facade. So,
Yeah, her offer is contingent upon, she doesn't start paying us until she starts collecting rent. And that was the intent of the way it's written.
And then it's paid back over 30 months.
Correct.
after she collects her first rent check.
After she collects the first rent.
And we'll hold a mortgage on the property.
Oh, great, we could get it back.
Well, we could also walk away from it.
And
Or
it's
it
gonna
could
stay there.
and deteriorate.
It's gonna stay there and haunt us.
Well,
It's
you've
not-
already got 7,700 invested.
It's not
We're-
going away.
We're talking about investing, I think the old hospital, the acquisition costs were around $2,000, weren't they?
What did Cassie say, windows were falling out that one time? I guess,
She gets rain, she's been getting water in
I
her
guess 30 months of
business.
payment and then the upstairs done is a better risk financially for the city than a brick falling and damaging somebody. I mean,
Adrian, what would you anticipate as additional expenses to take possession of this?
It would probably run about the same, 1,500 to 2,000.
And she's willing to pay those.
She is.
Well, I'm gonna go out there and make a motion that we authorize the city attorney and the interim city administrator to pursue acquiring the property through the statute that applies so that we can sell it.
and I'm gonna second that, and in doing the public hearing, I think we need to be notifying the neighboring buildings, not make the same mistake we did with the railroad right of way. Send a letter to the person who owns the building downstairs as a formality.
We already know she doesn't want it.
I know, but you know what? I don't want her standing here saying you sold it out from underneath me without giving me a chance.
Well,
It's just a simple
let me,
letter.
let me add a provision to the purchase agreement that adds another contingency, and that is the council approves the sale following publication.
Perfect.
Because otherwise we'd have a dilemma, we've got two lines in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll add a provision. Making the city's acceptance contingent, just as it is on acquiring title as an abandoned building. Okay.
Perfect.
I don't think any current council is looking to get into the real estate business. I guess there's always the risk, but the reward could be the fact that we can close this up and make it just a bad memory in the rearview mirror. If we do nothing, we could wind up with no one occupying the entire building, and it literally fall back into our lap. So,
I agree with Bill. This lady, I know her too, and like I said, she's done all this other work, and she's a hard worker. I know there's always a chance, as you said, it could come back, but this would be about as guaranteed as you can get it, I think, with anybody. That she will get it fixed up and get her income coming in.
So will this mortgage just be assessed to her taxes, or will she be making payments direct to the city of Anamosa?
Should be making payments direct to the city of Anamosa. We're gonna hold a mortgage to secure what we've got invested in the property, which will be close to 10 grand.
because we all have currently ponied up 7,700.
Correct.
Adrian, did you need them to include in the motion? Because this was just to authorize moving forward with acquiring the property. Do you need them to approve this purchase agreement first?
I think
In
we-
contingency with that?
Yes.
So you can send it to Charlotte?
Tammy, how long ago was the initial 7,700 paid out?
Pardon me?
When did the city fork out $7,700 for this property?
Yeah, it was probably,
2011.
thank you.
6 years ago.
Good memory, Adrian.
No, it's,
I know.
That's why he brought the file.
yeah.
So just, if you guys want to amend that motion to say, approve the proposed purchase
So
agreement with,
amended.
and authorize.
So this contract, the mortgage would be at a 0%
Correct.
interest rate?
Correct.
We'd be getting our $7,700.
And you're gonna still second it with his amended.
Absolutely.
First by Bill, second by Betty. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 6.4, discussion and possible action on request from Simon Crane, Moyer Bergman, PLC, on behalf of Macocata Valley Electric Cooperative, to dismiss a municipal infraction citation filed against Macocata Valley REC for constructing the fence in violation of the appeal stay, and if Macocata Valley REC agrees to pay the court costs.
Just out of curiosity, what was the total?
The initial was 750, Adrian, correct?
Yes.
If it would have been repetitive, it would have been 1,000 a day.
What's the court cost? Are there any court costs involved?
Yeah, they're the same as the small claims, which would be $85. And since our officers served the notice themselves, we don't have service fees out of pocket. Do we? I don't think so. So we've got $85 in the courthouse.
I'm okay with that.
Adrian, you can refresh my memory, and for clarity, what the reason was for the infraction.
It appeared that Maquoketa Valley was ignoring the state. When Ms. Finn filed her appeal of the permit being issued, that put it in the zoning board of adjustments lap, both our city code and the state code say there's a stay, and a caution flag. Everybody, nothing happens until it's been decided. And the timeline was such that it appeared that Maquoketa Valley was ignoring that.
But once they got the notice, they immediately stopped, is that correct?
They stopped after the municipal infraction,
infraction was
filed,
filed.
but it also rained heavy that day. I don't know that our
That there
paper,
was- That did it, okay.
or God, one of the two, did it. But they did discontinue work until the appeal was decided, yes.
Okay. Well, I'd make the motion to dismiss the infraction fee.
I second that.
First by Rich, second by Betty. Need any further
One-
discussion?
Yeah, we have ordinances and we want to enforce them. The neighborly and friendly thing to do would be to waive the infraction or the fine. I really question if that is done, what credibility this council has moving forward when you want to enforce ordinances and infractions of the ordinances that may surface at that time. And I know we're looking into the future and trying to say, will there be another one? But I question the credibility that the council will have if that does occur.
Like an empty threat.
I'm not making any threats at all, no.
No,
I'm just,
I mean by saying you'll get an infraction, no, and we're gonna let it go as an empty threat.
I mean, we have fined or enforced the infraction when people were in violation of it, but I see Maquoketa Valley, once the appeal went through and there was no more action taken with it.
I'm just fearful that we could be laughed at in the future when we try to enforce something based on this occurrence that, yeah, they will. They never did it the last time.
Well, I would say keep it in place if they had continued on after they got the citation, but since they stopped, I don't know if there was miscommunication up front on the stay, no clue on how all that worked. But if they stopped, I think that meant they took it serious enough to go ahead and stop instead of continuing the process.
Is there anyone in council that can speak on behalf of the REC? So we really, now we're trying to assume what they knew, didn't know,
Who
what they
knows?
thought or didn't
Right.
think.
But I think it would be a different issue if they had continued. And that's going to your thing that the next time, if somebody starts and they continue, that's a different story than this one. You know, every instance is gonna be a unique to its own case.
But you could set a precedent.
as a thought, Dick Dearborn, 600 North Williams. I mean, I understand what you're saying, credibility of the council and everything. I also understand what you're saying about being a neighborly thing. But we just went through a neighborly thing here where an infraction was given, or however it's termed, and as a council you decided to waive it for now, and whatever, you considered it on a basis, and you made the decision. So really you set a precedent right there, and now to do the opposite now because you're afraid to set a precedent doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think it's just every case has to come in front of the council to decide whether or not you're going to waive it or not. So in the future, not. So anyway, I'm just an observation.
Need your name and address, Dick.
Oh,
He did.
he did.
Oh, sorry. Oh, guess I wasn't paying attention, was I?
Way back.
I
Now
see
your
where you're,
mind is
I
somewhere
understand where you're
else.
coming from, Dick.
Yeah, I'll try to balance that.
I don't know if these two comparisons is a good comparison. We have an infraction of the ordinance that was, actually had been executed. Here we're working with the parties to prevent that. So, but I understand, duly noted too. Thanks, Dick.
I see that some too.
We had a first and a second.
We have a first and a second.
Ready to vote on that one? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carried. 6.5, discussion and possible action on the request to remove or delete from the Anamosa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 55, Animal Protection and Control, Section 55.01, Sub 4, Sub F, defining pit bull terriers as dangerous animals.
Chris Collins, 507 East First Street. So when I came here last time, there was two questions. One you guys asked, and then a member of the audience asked. You guys were getting information for pit bulls in the city of Anamosa. So I didn't know if you guys got those. If you had the information on that from the police department. Or if you guys looked into that.
What was your question again?
The question that you guys are waiting on was to see from the police department the numbers on pit bulls removed from the city of Anamosa. And I had said that there had been a voluntary turnover last year, and that was the only one, any of this, so I didn't know if you guys had any numbers on that at all, or if you guys received.
I believe we did.
That answer was submitted to you
Yes.
earlier.
Can you refresh council's memory and clarify for the public what those numbers were and the occurrences, Bob?
There were approximately a grand total of, I believe, 3. There were 2 that we talked to. And then there was one that ended up injuring or killing another family pet out of the same household. And that dog, because apparently there was a viciousness problem, the dog owner had the dog euthanized at the vet clinic out here within a day or 2.
Alright, any other breeds that have been removed for being vicious?
That wasn't one of the questions, but yes, there have been.
Okay, cause I have 45 different breeds since 1975 that have bitten and killed somebody.
In Anamosa.
No, we're nationwide. I'm sorry, nationwide. I don't know. The only fatality I could find was one in Monticello about 4 years ago. It was a Rottweiler. Didn't kill the girl. 2 of them actually.
Hopkins.
What's that?
Hopkinton.
Hopkins.
That's
Sorry.
Delaware County.
So, the second question was why did the law become a law in the first place? And I didn't know if you guys had done could find anything on that.
That was one of somebody from the public had asked
Yeah.
that. And I kind of felt like it was somewhat irrelevant to moving forward.
And I did too. And the only thing I could find is I think my numbers were wrong. I think it was in 2004.
September.
Of 2004.
That ordinance was
Inquiry.
actually that, our pit bull ordinance has been in place since it was codified in 1996.
Yes, that's the information.
The one in 2004 was to amend that section, because it used to be, if it looked like a pit bull, it looked like a pit bull terrier, it could be gone. Then it gave the dog owner the right to prove by testing if it was predominantly a pit bull breed.
And that's the one since 2000.
That's the one that was
And
added
that's
in
the one that's been-
2004 to the original ordinance prior, above that, yes.
So you do not have a pit bull.
I don't.
Do you want to get a pit bull? Is that what, can
I
I ask what has brought this up?
Yeah, I foster dogs.
Okay.
And I don't like breed-specific laws just because they're discriminatory laws.
Sure.
Right? We don't ban certain groups of people. We shouldn't do the same for dogs. That's how I feel.
Sure.
Vicious dogs should not, owners should be responsible for it. They shouldn't be in Anamosa or anything. We have leash laws, we have dog registration, vicious dog laws. So I don't see the need for a breed-specific dog. Because the one dog that was euthanized was because it was vicious. It wasn't because it was a pit bull. It happened to be a pit bull, but it was vicious. Other dogs have been removed. I'm sure other dogs have been euthanized for being vicious dogs. I've talked to city attorneys from other cities, Cedar Rapids being one, and they said it's an unenforceable law. Because first you have to prove it. Dogs are
Mutts look like a pit
right.
bull.
Talked to 3 surrounding vets who said there's absolutely no way they would ever deem a dog a pit bull, ever. They'll say it's a lab mix, and that's as far as they're gonna go, because they don't wanna be tied up in court with it, they don't want to deal with it. So at this point, I don't see how it would even be enforceable, other than one of these 2 guys seeing the dog, writing a search warrant because the dog's a piece of property in Iowa, and then seizing it.
Makes sense.
I had a conversation with Brian Darrow, and he stated basically what you did is there's pit bulls are a great dog, and he sees a lot of them, and he feels the city needs to update their ordinance to just take the breed specific out of it, because there's good dogs and there's bad dogs, and it's probably more of an owner of a dog than a dog issue.
And I think we've already done that by beefing up the aggressive and the
Yeah,
vicious dog.
and he felt the same way. He feels that he's a former council member as well. So he said, "The dog ordinance is good. You should take this breed specific out of it now."
And what it comes down to then is enforcement.
Behind every good ordinance should be good enforcement.
If the dog shows any aggression, there's not a 1, 2, 3 strikes, it's 1.
That's all I get.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
So was that a motion, Cody?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to remove it.
I'll second that motion.
That's to have, prepare an ordinance for the next meeting, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kelly Day, 110 West Walnut Street. I was the president of Animal Welfare Foundation for 5.5 years. During the time that I was president, I euthanized one dog for being vicious. It was a yellow lab. We've had a lot of pit bulls, not problems. A lot of them are babies, they just love people to death. So yeah, and when you're looking at your breed-specific laws, I think you need to look at how are you gonna determine if they're vicious. Because I've seen a council member elsewhere who is totally afraid of every dog. And his indication was, if a dog puts its mouth on your hand, just even in play, that's vicious. So, puppies are gonna do that, and that would make them classified as vicious. So just make sure that whatever you do with your vicious definition, you take everything into consideration.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Adrian, you got any?
I don't know that I could successfully defend the constitutional challenge. I don't know that I could.
As it's written now.
As it's written now, there's gotta be a reasonable basis for the prohibition. And I've had the same conversation Cody has had with Dr. Darrell, and he said, he's more concerned with a child than he is a pit bull. And I just don't think I could defend it if it were challenged. And if it were challenged, I'd be here telling you, let's strike their colors and regroup.
So we would be taking the word pit bull out of our ordinance, and we would be just going with the vicious dog ordinance, correct?
Vicious and now aggressive.
Yeah, you'd be taking the pit bull terrier breed out from dangerous animals as a definition, so it would be considered dangerous.
Bull Terrier, Staffordshire Terrier, American Pit Bull,
The whole section.
all that's coming out.
So we've got first
There's, you know, there's some dogs, some breed of dogs that have a tendency to be more vicious. I'm short of saying all of them, but there are some.
Chris Gons, 507 East First Street. In regards to that, do you have any numbers to support that, or are you just going off your personal?
Well, no,
Because-
but I'm also not willing to take your 45 nationwide because I'm concerned about within
Right.
these city limits. So,
Right.
you know, you can push that aside as well. We did talk about 3 pit bulls
Yep.
that has occurred in Anamosa.
Yep.
One was euthanized.
And then also other dogs too, other breeds.
Okay. We're just, I wanna stick with the pit bull.
Correct. But
That's what you came before the council with.
absolutely, and by showing you that there are other dogs that are vicious, other breeds that are just as vicious or if not more, I think that's a valid point to make.
And we have to kind of address everything only because we've also gotten contact by people who have asked us to leave it in. So,
Absolutely.
Because they had personal experience with it, but.
yes. So we're just trying to make sure that they
Absolutely.
don't feel we're blowing them off, we don't feel we're blowing you off, we're just,
Yep, and I think what the reason I brought this up is because of the stigma and the stereotype, and that comment there's no fact to back that up, it's just, there are certain breeds. Of course there are. I've seen 2 Dutch Shepherds completely rip a guy's arm off. 2 different people, so, but they're allowed everywhere, so. Alright. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
There's no council from 1996 when this ordinance was reviewed and adopted. No current council serving or in the room.
Nope.
So then in 2004, when some sort of amendment occurred, is there any council present in the room that was part of amending at that time and not omitting what was previous?
I was here. Council.
Can you, why did they not at that time remove?
It was never brought up to, was never suggested to remove it. I think they were trying to come to a conclusion, because one gentleman, they were trying to make him remove his dog because it had the appearance
So they
as
did,
defined.
they did take it a step further.
So they took a step farther, trying to compromise, still retaining it, but giving them the opportunity to do, I don't know if you call it DNA testing, to show what breed of dog. It was not predominantly pit bull. That person chose not to do that at that time and did remove the dog, but that was the reason for it.
But then we still have our legal counsel who's not convinced he can defend it
Well,
if we were challenged on it.
yeah, and I just did a quick Google search this afternoon, and I think there was a 2014 article that said there were like 700 cities throughout the U.S. that were removing the pit bull classification and going to a vicious dog because it was more enforceable.
So that's what we've done, that, you know, we've already pointed it out, we did aggressive dogs, vicious dogs, And we've already touched on probably the most important point is that a lot of this is influenced by the owner of the dog, not so much the dog itself.
Yes, Nancy.
Nancy Shaper, 803 North Division Court. I Googled too. and to see the pros and cons of breed specific, and they did bring up another, which is breed neutral laws, which make a lot of sense too. But talking about the bites, I was curious about that, like you, Rod. And this is from PETA. As of May 25th, 2013, the U.S. death count from dogs in 2013 was 14 deaths. Of those, 13 people were killed by pit bulls. So, and that's from PETA.
Thank you.
It's a high percentage.
Would changing it just to address the vicious dog thing be like, instead of eliminating the pit bulls, it would be just adding to covering more? It would be better.
When you look at people that are killed by animals, that counts for about 1% of your vicious dogs. You've got the other 99% out there where you've got vicious dogs that have bitten but have not created fatality. So if you look at that, you're just looking at 1%
Yeah.
of total dog bites.
1% is not, it's not very high until,
Throughout the nation.
yeah, until you're part of the 1% family. I don't want 1% of the airplanes falling out of the skies
I've been bitten
either.
by a lot more Yorkies than pit bulls. let me tell you.
Amen.
So, just some irrefutable facts on dog bites in general that lean toward it being an owner issue and not a breed-specific issue. 97% of fatal dog attacks in 2006 were not spayed and neutered. 78% of those were not pets. They were regarding image-enhancing fighting or breeding. And 84 were maintained by reckless owners that abused, neglected, not humanely controlled, and never around children. So 97 of them are the owner's issue. 97%.
So what happens if the police show up at a domestic disturbance and there's 2 dogs in the house? Do you ask if them dogs are licensed with the city? Or do you just don't go there?
At that point, the domestic's kind of the priority.
I agree it's the priority, but at some point, wherever we're seeing dogs, whether they're walking on Main Street or where you guys get called to a home, why do we have a dog license law if nobody cares?
I believe we only have like 46 or 47 licensed animals, and I know there's a lot more than that in the town.
What's the repercussion for not getting your dog license? I mean, if we have it as a law, you have to license your dog, but everybody, there we are again, where we have rules that we don't care if people follow them or not, correct? Not correct?
Well, and then I would have a question for you guys that would probably help understand more where you guys are coming from is, when does a dog become a problem for you guys? Like, when are you guys worried about a dog?
Well, as said, the same domestic, the first thing we do is kind of ask if somebody can put the dogs in another room.
Right.
So we don't have to contend with it. We start arresting somebody and have to wrestle somebody.
Right.
Good chance we're gonna get bit.
Well, not on a domestic, not on a regular call. You guys
Right.
are just out patrolling. When does a dog become an issue for you guys?
Generally, if we get a complaint.
A complaint about it being barking too loud, running loose, or biting
Right.
somebody. Right?
Right.
So if it's a vicious or aggressive dog, or an annoyance, a nuisance, right? So that's probably why. I mean, I'm sure you guys don't go up to every dog and ask if it's registered, the owner. And it's not, I don't think it's reasonable to expect you guys to do that. That's where I was coming from there. And it's hard to enforce it, but
And I just use that as an example, but the point I'm trying to make here is, we don't know what we have in the city of Anamosa for dogs. We're clueless of how many pit bulls we have.
I know
as
there's
opposed to-
9. Personally, that I know 9
I
pit
was gonna
bulls.
say, you don't know there's
No,
only 9.
just I do. The people that I know that live within the city that own pit bulls and have reached out to me since.
People that you know that have reached out to, but I am saying there are probably others that have.
Oh, correct. At least 9.
You can't say there's only 9.
No. I'm sorry. I
Alright.
meant at least 9.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So the point I'm making is, we are clueless as a city because we don't enforce the rules we have, i.e. being licensed for dogs. So, doesn't matter what the breed of dogs are, we don't.
And I would kind of argue that more owners are probably in hiding for fear of their dog being taken away. And you guys would probably get a better turnout for registering dogs, which ensures that they're vaccinated and not vicious. But that'd be my personal opinion, I would guess. I know if I had a pit bull, I probably wouldn't register it in the city of Anamosa, right, as of right now.
Janice Hollop, 302 North Ford Street. I knew the gal, the grandmother of the child that got killed in Delaware County, went into the backyard with the family pit bull and was killed. So far, we haven't had any deaths in Anamosa because of dog attacks, pit bulls, German shepherds, whatever. I'd like to keep it that way. I'm not in favor of these pit bulls. I don't hate dogs, and maybe it is discriminating against the breed. And it wasn't in Iowa, but about 2 weeks ago, a child went over a fence into a neighbor's backyard and was killed by 2 pit bulls. Why is it we hear about their attacks more than other dogs? I think the dog could be okay. I don't know about the owners who have these dogs, if they train them to be mean or what. But so far, we haven't had any deaths for children because of pit bulls in this town.
And I just like to
Have a
one
debate.
one more comment. A lot of bites by smaller dogs like Yorkies and stuff that they just go unreported. That's all there is to it.
We did, I don't know if the public's aware, we did receive a letter from a lady here, a resident, that their experience with the neighbor's pit bull, it's real. It makes you wonder.
Ready to vote? Got a first and second. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carried.
And I'm gonna add that I'm willing to support this, but I would like the ordinances to be followed. And I would like to see, when we see dogs, it takes 5 minutes for our police officers to say, hey, have you licensed your dog? And if they say no, say, next time I see you, I'm gonna ask you again, and I expect a yes. 2 seconds that takes, and on we can go.
6.6, discussion and possible action on resolution dedicating portions of Block 40 Scott and Skinner addition to Strawberry Hills, Jones County, Iowa, to Shaw Road right-of-way to facilitate development of Wapsipinicon Trail.
You guys bring your dogs?
No, we didn't.
It's not registered.
That was my next question.
I'm Todd Hoppel with Anderson Bogert Engineers. I'm the project manager for the Wapsipinicon Trail project for Jones County and within Anamosa here. Just to give you a brief update on the project, We turned in check plans here a couple weeks ago to the DOT. So they're in review right now. We're supposed to be going through a letting. I believe it's in March of 2018. The construction slated for next year. We've been working on this project for about a year now. Started off as a trail project, but we got a roadway added to it. Usually it's the other way around. We're working on a roadway project and we get a trail added. But Derek's here from Jones County. Can you tell him what we have to do?
So, Derek Sneed, Jones County Engineer. Had a few conversations with Tammy a little bit. As this project progressed from a trail to proximity where the trail is going to be located, we've had plans in the works now in our 5-year construction program for a little bit to reconstruct the Shaw Road from 3rd Street down to Highway 151. As the trail's proximity to the road got closer and closer, the necessity to combine at least a portion of the project together became more evident, and so since we're doing a little curb and gutter section and with the northmost portion of this trail, just made sense to tear out our portion of the road while we're there, continue the phase 2 and 3 and the reconstruction of the remainder of the roadway at a later time. So in order to do that, the Shaw Road as it sits now is both in county jurisdiction and within the city of Anamosa's corporation limits, and so a agreement of the two parties and is a necessity in order for us to move forward with the project. And so Todd's kind of put the plans together, and what I pass out to the council members is it's just a 28E agreement that I think maybe some of you have already seen and has gone through some of the hierarchy a little bit. But essentially what it does is say to complete this project, we're going to combine essentially our resources, the county, whether it be through the engineer's office or through the trails agent that they have here, Todd, essentially. We are going to administer design, observe construction, document, and close out the project for the entirety of the project. In exchange for that, the city of Anamosa pays for their portion of the construction in addition to a 7.5% administrative fee, essentially. We've done projects with other counties, other counties and other municipalities before, and that's kind of been the past practice that we've implemented. And so what's here in their packets, just the 2080, and then there's three attachments to that. The first being a vicinity map. It just kind of shows both the right-of-way and the temporary easement needed to construct the project in that north corridor, kind of along the property of the fire station. There's a cost opinion, and then there's also a second map that kind of shows the corporation boundaries between the city of Anamosa and Jones County through that project corridor. So.
This 2080 agreement, I apologize because I should have followed up with Derek because we should have had this on the agenda also. So this is just to those two items, next two items, this one and the next one are just to incorporate those two things with this construction project. And just for peace of mind and for clarification, the county is taking the lead on this, so the city actually has no responsibilities during the project as far as observation, costs during the project. This just delineates for the council what your share, and as it's stated in this 2080 agreement, would be 25% of the total project cost, plus a 7.5% fee for them to do all the work that they're gonna be doing.
Just for the roadway cost.
Pardon me?
Just for the roadway.
And this is for the roadway, not for the trail. So our share, the city's share of that, Derek's estimating it to be 92,000. Is that right?
Todd's estimate.
Right.
Todd's estimate, sorry.
That includes a 10% contingency.
Right,
Did we already
or the
approve
7.
this one?
Right, but this just puts firmer numbers to that. The original estimate was 65,000 or so. It was just a total estimate at that point.
Yeah,
Until
that was
they got
just,
to this
we
design.
took, the roadway, existing roadway that was there, and just gave us, an average square yardage price that we've gotten, from similar projects, and so you've got 1,500 of pavement being removed, you got 1,500, linear feet that needs modified sub-base on it and replaced, so it's just for the roadway cost. What Todd did when he actually designed the project, could add other items like, grading, sidewalk, not, no sidewalks actually, drainage structures.
Traffic control, one culvert, all the intakes and curb and gutter on the trail side is part of the trail costs, so those aren't part of the roadway costs, those are all paid by the grants that are with the trail. There's some other mobilization, those kinds of things, so.
And the other thing they did, just for clarification on the, and Todd can probably explain it, the intersection of Shaw Road and East Third Street, and also Lynn Street and Shaw Road.
Yeah.
Those two intersections, as you pull up to those,
Yeah, and the
they have-
reason,
they're
the
straightening
item
those out.
6.6 that we're on talks about the permanent right-of-way, that 207 acre, and that's a corner off of, here's Third Street right here, and here's Shaw Road. What we're gonna do is bring that roadway in, so it's more of a 90-degree intersection with Third Street. Right now, it's really askew, so you really gotta look over your shoulder to see if anybody's coming down Third Street. So that'd be more of a 90-degree angle.
On a hill.
Yeah, on a hill, yep. And what that does, it cuts into that corner of the fire station lot just a little bit in that corner. So that's the permanent right-of-way, that little tiny corner there. And then the next agenda item is the temporary easement, which is a 15-foot wide strip along here, just to basically grade for the trail.
that's just during construction.
Temporary
It's temporary.
construction easement for that. So. And then the same thing down at Lynn Street, the county wants to take Lynn Street and tie that in a little bit more of a 90-degree angle with Shaw Road. Right now, that's a pretty good skew as well, so.
It's a safety issue, addressing that.
Yeah.
A lot of times if you're just doing an overlay for a project, you put things kind of back the way they were. This particular project's gonna be a reconstruction type project, so that means the pavement's gotta be removed. You replace the sub-base and everything, so, you can make some additional safety enhancements, cause you're gonna reconstruct it anyway, with a little bit minor, additional cost to it, so, it's a good time to clean up these types of things. Anything that's not a 90-degree angle for intersections is not ideal, not only for for a regular roadway, but when you add pedestrian and bicycle traffic onto it, just amplifies that quite a bit more. So for the amount of cost that it takes to adjust these intersections, it's really a very minor cost for the amount of safety enhancements for these two intersections.
So the one down at the end of Lynn Street on the Shaw Road, that's county, right? It's the one up on,
It's actually both.
is that city too down there?
Yeah, so that last page in that packet, it's got a yellow dash dot line on it that delineates the corporation limits, goes down Shaw Road for about 270, 300 feet or so. There's three parcels, three properties that are kind of in the north quadrant of the Lynn Shaw Road intersection. Those are all within the county. You go just south of Lynn Street. All the properties on the east half of Lynn Street essentially are within the city corporation limits. And then just beyond those parcels, if you keep going farther to the south on Shaw Road, that's all county, going out all the way out to 151 south of that.
I did not know that. They
Okay.
had it.
There'll be a quiz.
So that 2080 agreement would be on the next agenda, but I just wanted to make sure the council was understanding what was coming.
It's
'Cause
all
these-
part of the discussion. It's all-
Yeah, because these two items are the ones that you'll be acting on, the right-of-way and the easement, temporary construction easement.
And the way Derek's got this broke out is the city would pay for that half along their jurisdictions, just that half of the roadway, so.
So if you look on that map, there's a table in the upper right-hand column. What that's doing is just, the way we came up with the 75-25, it's just a linear footage of what county versus city, that it's adjoining the center line of the road. So there's approximately, I think it's like actually 27.3% that's city and 73. It's very, very close to a 25-75 split of, if you just go down the center line of the road, city versus county, so.
So if we do the 28E agreement, this supersedes what we already decided, right? This takes precedence over that?
Yes, this is putting actual numbers, or
To what
closer
we
numbers.
approved.
Yes.
All right.
And I believe that 2080 agreement says you pay actual costs, so if the bids come in lower than our estimate, then there's a cost savings.
I know for a while they were. Is that still the case?
We're still seeing good bids, yes. Yes, and if we can get this thing bid in March.
When
maybe we'll
we
have
get
good
it in
bids.
March. Is that negative dusty?
We've
So
got a
this-
couple jurisdictions that have some say over this yet, so.
So if it's bid in March, our share would be billed from the county, just for clarification.
The way we plan on handling it, we'll just, this portion, the roadway portion will be, local money, that we'll pay up front, and then, after substantial completion of the project, meet with you guys, and as long as you guys don't see anything that you, I guess, think that is according to the plans or specifications or anything that you weren't under the understanding of, then, I think it says in there you got 60 days to pay off, or, off the note or something.
So
to
we're
that
looking
effect.
in fiscal year
It would, you
18,
know,
19, after
very
July
likely
1st.
construction won't be completed until, probably September,
Right.
November-ish next
So it'd be
year,
a
so.
budget planning for
We're
next
looking at
year.
probably sometime after January 1st of 2019, yeah. That
Wow.
it'd be approximately when that, would be requesting the funds back for that portion of the construction.
So the main reason I'm here tonight is to talk about this 200ths of an acre in that corner of Third Street and Shaw Road. Basically, you're dedicating that to yourself, from your fire station lot to public right-of-way. So I think that's a no-brainer. And then it's just that little strip of, temporary construction easement for the project to allow us to do some grading for the trail.
Once the project is over, it goes back to just the way it was.
Right.
It'll be easier to maintain than it is now, that's for sure.
And while you're on the subject of maintaining, because I know Greg asked me that question, after the trail's in place and done, the portion that's on the city side, we are responsible for maintaining it, but there probably won't be any.
I'm not sure, I was
Didn't we-
thinking I think the actual trail portion, I don't know if conservation's taking all that over or not.
Okay, I was just curious, I thought we'd talked about that.
That'd be nice.
I can't remember if, and, this isn't going to be an all-seasons trail, I don't believe. We're
Right.
not gonna be plowing it full of snow and that type of thing, so, as far as, maintenance that the city's gonna have on it, wouldn't be much different than the regular sidewalks in town. I don't even know if the city takes care of them, to be honest with you, so.
No.
That'd be, talk to Brad about
That
that.
might be something that should be detailed in here.
Well, Derek, when we talked about it
That's-
initially, we're gonna put it in the other,
Yeah, so right now the secondary roads department and the city of Anamosa has a maintenance agreement for plowing snow and that type of things. And so we needs to, just going through our policies and agreements with other jurisdictions lately. And so city of Anamosa is one that I had planned on getting to here before long. That'll be something we discuss when we
So
revise
it's a
that,
separate
so,
document.
but yeah.
but the life of the trail itself, the maintenance, how many years? I know it's hard to say, it's like a roadway, how do you,
30 plus,
yeah.
That's if you really beat it up.
And we're not gonna have to
yeah.
shovel snow off of it or anything.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Did you have any questions, Greg?
So I believe you have a resolution for the right-of-way dedication.
Make a motion that we dedicate that portion of block 40 to the right-of-way for Shaw Road improvement.
I'll second it.
First by Bill, second by Betty.
Greg, you good with all this?
I just got the plans tonight.
So you're good with it all?
I haven't gone through anything, nothing else, so. I don't know, we're gonna take the money out of the 2018-2019 budget, that's gonna wipe off any progress we have here in the, within the city, so that's gonna wipe out our budget for, that fiscal year to do anything inside the city limits.
It's already approved, the majority of it with road
Mhm.
use tax, if I remember right.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's starting the whole 90, we've already approved 60 some of it, correct?
Yeah,
And we approved it with road use tax.
that was the tentative plan, yes, it
Yes.
wasn't put in.
But we haven't
It's not in
budgeted.
the budget.
We haven't made the
Right.
budget yet.
No.
No. So, but they made the commitment to it,
Right.
to the project.
Any further discussion? It's a roll vote.
Bill,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
6.7, discussion.
Thanks, fellas.
Guys.
Thanks. 6.7, discussion and possible action granting a temporary construction easement allowing for the construction of the Wapsie Trail project.
So moved.
First by Bill.
Second.
Which one?
Take your pick.
Second by Rich. You want to discuss it more? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those are the items
Thanks for
that
being here.
you wanted Adrian here specifically for, so I.
Anybody want me to stay on for something else on the agenda?
Give me a second, Adrian.
How about the discussion about this one? Will we do that? I don't remember anything if we looked over about that.
Could you stay at least through the next topic?
Sure. The cemetery?
Yes, please.
Sure.
6.8, discussion and possible action on review of city ordinance and policies and practices regarding the upkeep of Riverside Cemetery. And before we continue with this agenda item, I would like to turn this over to Tammy, as she and Penny have been the most direct contact with the public regarding this agenda item.
Thank you. I just have a little thing I'd like to say to the public present and to the council. First of all, we, the city, would like to apologize to the community and all the people that have been affected by the recent cleanup efforts in the Riverside Cemetery that was done, and offer our sincere apologies. I know from Penny and I's direct contact with everyone, which we appreciate. We feel what everybody was expressing, and I know it was very sensitive and emotional. This was our mistake in a number of reasons. And just to clarify, I want to say there's always a balance that we, as a city, need to maintain between respecting how each individual person identifies with and mourns the loss of their loved ones, and continuing to maintenance and maintain the cemetery and, you know, the natural beauty of our cemetery. And we believe that we have a strong community, and have faith that in moving forward as a community, we can communicate and work together effectively to maintain that sensitive balance. And I just wanted to reiterate again that I personally feel very bad for people who this has affected, you know, on that level. And I know it's a very sensitive issue, so I just wanted to say that. So does anybody have comments that you'd like to share with the council?
I'm Dolores Rickles. I live at 230th Avenue in Anamosa. And my husband's buried out at Riverside, and I'm going to read this because I don't want to forget anything. On October 25th, I went to the Riverside Cemetery, as I do a few times a week, because my husband is buried there. Because of the road construction, I've been unable to go for a few weeks. I noticed several city workers and inmates removing flowers from the grave sites. I didn't pay too much attention until I drove to the south side where my husband is buried. The saddle and flowers that were on top of the headstone and the flowers that were on the side faces had all been removed. Nothing was placed on the ground, so there was absolutely no reason for those items to be removed. I drove to where the workers were and asked why all the flowers were being removed. I was told the boss told us to do this, and we have to do what the boss tells us to do. They were tossing everything into the back of a city truck. I was very upset and drove to City Hall and asked what was going on. No one seemed to know anything about it, and a phone call was made to, I presume, Mr. Carpenter. When I got home, I contacted several city council members, and they knew nothing about what was happening. I believe some of them drove through the cemetery to see what was going on. They couldn't believe that the saddle and flowers and vases that were attached to the stone were taken. Mr. Carpenter should have checked to what could be removed. After a phone call to the funeral home, my daughter was told that nothing attached to a headstone was to be touched. The stones are private property, and what is put on them cannot be just thrown out on someone's whim. Seems to me the guys think they can do whatever he wants, right or wrong, and get away with it. If he was so worried about the decorations and how the cemetery looked, maybe he should have taken better care of it, making sure the area between the stones is trimmed. The south side of the cemetery is a mess. Between my husband's stone and the next stone, there's 6 to 8 inches of grass growing there. It hasn't been trimmed for 2 or 3 mowings. This was something that didn't have to happen. Going to the cemetery to visit a loved one, then seeing the memorial that you have for them simply tossed in the trash and heart-wrenching, and not something that anyone will forget. This should never have happened. The people are now wary of placing anything on the stone for fear they will again be tossed out because someone who has a little authority is allowed to do whatever he wants. An apology is not going to remedy this situation. People need to know that the person responsible is going to be held accountable for his actions. I do not buy my flowers at Walmart. I go to Anamosa Floral. The side vase flowers were $57.74. The saddle was $48.15. So that's quite an expensive, and then those expensive flowers just be thrown in the trash. And also that sign needs to be taken down and correctly worded, because it said all flowers, everything, the way it's stated, is going to be removed from the stone.
Thank you.
Bill Goodman, 804 East First Street. Several people whom were affected by this are near and dear friends of mine, and I don't know whether they're accepting your apology, Tammy, or not, but the fact that it happened was just absolutely ludicrous. We have ordinances in this town. 99% of them are not enforced. at least on a regular basis. We have from time to time concerns about different things that are governed by the ordinances, and before we put out a push to enforce them, they're always advertised in the paper. Put people on notice. This is no different. If you have an ordinance for the cemetery, and you want flowers removed from the cemetery, then an ad needs to be put in the paper clearly defining what needs to be removed and what can stay. And like this lady just got up and stated, there's many people down there that don't buy flowers, plastic flowers at Walmart, and put them out. They spend a lot of money for the memory of their loved one. And I'm standing before you tonight and stating that the people that came forward complained at the time this happened and were told to go down in front of the city barn and get their flowers off the pallet, whatever. Those people need to be financially reimbursed for what was taken off their grave. This is not a catch-all for anybody else to come in on top of it, but for the people who came to you when this happened. And I think that the city needs to fess up and reimburse these people to get these flowers replaced. And I will add that Riverside Cemetery is not kept up to the standards of other community cemeteries that surround us. And I know too that the city is not responsible for Holy Cross Cemetery, but it's part of the community. And Holy Cross Cemetery is a godforsaken mess. It is a mess. And I can't tell you how many grave marker, war era grave markers that I have had to go and get and replace because they've been broken or bent beyond repair by maintenance people taking care of the cemetery. Something needs to be done. It's part of the community. People drive through the cemeteries, and if they see a crap cemetery, well, that's part of the community. It's no different than the parks. But I'm going to close this by stating that these people who step forward need to be reimbursed in full for the replacement of those flowers. No ifs, ands, or buts. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the council?
Well, Janice Hollop, 302 North Board. Tammy got an earful from me that day I found out the flowers were gone. Actually, because it was October, I thought it was some Halloween prank. And went through and it was just picked to the bone. No flowers hardly anywhere. Now, we care about our loved ones that are buried in Riverside Cemetery. And seasonally, we'll go down, put Christmas wreaths, we'll put fall flowers, we'll put spring flowers. It's just something that makes us feel good, you know, to do. And I guess I don't understand why everything was taken off. We put those flowers on the top of the stone. The wind kept blowing them off, so my husband stuck a stake in the ground, tied it up so it wouldn't at least blow away and be trash blowing off into somebody's yard. So we secured it really good, and I had just put new ones down there for Memorial Day. I bought some new ones now at Animal Squirrel. I don't want reimbursement. I did at the time, Bill, but it isn't the money. It's the principle of it. And the solar lights, I don't know why they were taken out. If we can't have, I don't have solar lights, my sister had solar lights. They were thrown in the trash, I guess. So I guess I don't know why the things on top of the gravestones, so you guys don't have to trim around all that stuff. We're trying to be nice and help you out that way. Why that stuff was thrown away. I don't understand what was behind it. I guess I don't know what the ordinance is. I have new flowers to take down, but I'm waiting to see what your rule is, what your ordinance is, before I take them down there. They're gonna get tossed. If you don't want anything down there this winter, fine, but let us know. And like Bill said, there should have been a notice in the paper. It stirred up a lot of people. In fact, I thought the room would be full of irate citizens. But Riverside Cemetery is a beautiful cemetery. It's probably, for a cemetery, it's the prettiest one I've ever seen. And a lady who, do you remember her name, Nancy? Okay, it's in our sesquicentennial book. The upper part is where the really old stones are, you know, from years ago, the pioneers. And a lady, I forget her name now, I wish I had it with me, but her daughter was buried there, and she was going on a train trip, and she noticed these old godforsaken cemeteries, weeds taller than the stones, and she thought, man, I don't want our Riverside Cemetery to ever turn into that mess. So she started a beautification project, raised money years ago, planted the trees down there, and now that storm a few years back took a lot of those out. But anyway, it's a beautiful cemetery, and I just want to know what we can and can't do with our flowers. You know, I'm not going to take ours down until I hear a ruling on it or your ordinance or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've caught an earful from quite a few people, rightfully so, with the issues that went on there. One person sent me this. She said, when my son died 10 years ago, many people told me what a beautiful cemetery Riverside was. I spent many hours over the years at Sam's grave, which is her son. When I went there Friday, it was stark, like no one cared about it anymore, or anybody buried there anymore. What was done was so disrespectful to the families who tend to their loved ones' graves. So, and that's from Marla Spindler. So, she couldn't be here tonight, but asked if I would read a little something about it. And obviously, another very upset citizen.
My phone burned off. I couldn't get off one call and on to the next fast enough. A terrible, terrible, terrible mistake from the city has been made. This, I agree with Tammy, this is horrendous. I couldn't apologize enough. I don't have anyone buried there. In fact, none of my loved ones are buried within 1,000 miles of where I live. So, but it brought me to tears. It's definitely heart-wrenching. I think that as a city, we need to take a black eye on this. We need to own we made a mistake. There's no excuse for it, and I'm not gonna give an excuse for it. I only know that in the life I live, I often do things I should never have done. And I often say things I should never have said. Making mistakes is a daily occurrence for me, but it's my integrity and my character that defines how I handle the mistakes. And I would like to see that's how the city takes and addresses this. Because we will make mistakes. This will not be the last mistake made by the city. It's not the first one the city has made, and we have no excuse. But I personally want to, on behalf of the city, also give my deepest apologies. From this moment forward, Bill, I agree with you. It is something I have brought up to Tammy. Whoever has been affected by this, we have to make this right. I think that receipts should come in and the city needs to just make it right. It has been brought to my attention that there will be people that take advantage. So be it. That's on them, not on us. We're here to make it right, I feel. The third thing is that we need to make sure it never happens again. So, we own it, we apologize, we make it right, and we make steps to make sure it never happens again. That is all we can do. We can't go back and change what has been done. but I'm saying it with all sincerity.
I have one question. Is the sign gonna be removed and reworded? Because the way
It
it's
can
worded
be,
now.
definitely.
And that
As far as
sign
I'm
was-
concerned, it can be.
And that is a new sign, cause I went to the cemetery 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And after the road was completed, the highway, I went and I just saw the sign and it's just that everything's gonna be taken off the way the sign is worded.
Done.
Well, and I agree about the reimbursements, but the unfortunate part is there are some things that were specially made that there's reimbursement is far from the issue.
And if
They had so much meaning to so many people, and I think I was down there on that one Saturday, and Greg was there trying to help somebody look for a short piece of fence that the grandkids hung on for their dad who had passed away. And I don't know if you ever found that or not, Greg, but you know that if it was not found, it was something that no monetary value was going to replace it. So that's the unfortunate part too.
It is. There's our black eye, we have to
Yep.
own that.
I talked to the gals at Anamosa and they get a lot of orders, from people out of state who have loved ones buried down there. I said, just don't say anything, cause the stuff's gone, what are you gonna do now? You know, they paid for it, Anamosa took the stuff down, and now it's gone. So it
If they
affected
were
a lot
to
of people
find out
in
and-
town and out of town, and, yeah, it was, that was just insane.
It was. And
So we can put our stuff back then, is that what you're saying?
I would say yes.
We had told people they could put it back. So it won't be touched.
I've talked to other communities how they handle their cemetery, and I get that